A wife agreed to sleep with her husband's colleagues to secure a luxurious penthouse. The story's conclusion left many people stunned. "That's quite an intriguing proposition," I commented. "But I don't think this position is the right fit for me." Ryan Matthews, my boss, clearly wasn't thrilled with my response. I could tell I was about to face his disappointment head-on. "I'm not pleased with this, Mike," he said, his tone stern. "Up until now, every candidate I've approached with a partnership offer has accepted it without hesitation." "I regret causing you any displeasure," I responded. "Your satisfaction is certainly a priority in my life." "It should be," he replied. "Your potential promotion within the firm hinges on it. Several of our senior partners are eager to see you advance here." "It's nice to know they're supportive," I said. "But honestly, I'm content where I am as an associate. I'm not particularly ambitious." "And what does your wife think about that?" he inquired. "Is she aware of the opportunities that lie ahead? The perks of you becoming a junior partner and eventually a full partner?" "I haven't the slightest idea," I admitted. "It's not something we've ever really talked about. She's not very interested in my work life." "Would she be interested in a penthouse suite in one of the most prestigious buildings in the city?" he pressed. "Or in the possibility of you earning a substantial six-figure salary?" "I'm honestly not sure," I said. "She hasn't expressed any dissatisfaction with our current income or where we live." "Why not bring it up with her over the weekend?" he suggested. "I believe you might see things differently after discussing the compensation package we're offering." I nodded, agreeing to talk it over with my wife, and he left, leaving me to my thoughts. I wrapped up the case I was working on and then took it easy for the rest of the day. Later, I hit the golf course with my old high school soccer coach and had a nice dinner with my father-in-law. We talked about my career, and he gave me a hearty hug before we parted ways. Julie, my wife, was scheduled to return late that afternoon, so I headed to the gym to kill some time. After a good workout and a shower, I set off to pick her up from the airport. Her flight was delayed, so I found myself at the airport bar, sipping on a beer while keeping an eye on the arrival board. When I saw that her plane had finally landed, I made my way to the gate. As usual, she wasn't alone when she stepped off the plane. There was always some guy trying to catch her attention. This time, it was a uniformed officer who was following her, trying to strike up a conversation, but she paid him no mind. "Did you miss me?" she asked with a smile. "Every single moment," I answered. "Hey, Julie, what do you think about a penthouse in that upscale building downtown?" "I'm not sure," she replied, her expression thoughtful. "Isn't it kind of an old building? Which direction does it face?" I paused for a moment. "I'm not exactly sure. They haven't given all the details yet, but there's also the possibility of me bringing in a hefty six-figure income." "Interesting," she murmured. "Is that something you really want?" "Not particularly," I confessed. "But I've been offered a junior partnership at Abbott and Myers. They suggested I discuss it with you first." "Well, congratulations," she said, her tone light. "So, who do I have to sleep with?" "Pretty much everyone, I guess," I replied. "It seems like the senior partners are more eager to get you on board than me." She pressed her flawless body against mine. "Well, in that case, no problem at all," she said casually. "I need to let them know what you think about the penthouse and the big paychecks," I added. "I'm more interested in the other aspects," she said with a slight giggle. It was a cute sound, but it felt out of place, and it sent a chill down my spine. "I'm not too keen on getting handsy with men in their 60s, I remarked, playfully nibbling on one of the enticing curves on her chest. "Honestly, I'm not interested in men at any age. If it's all the same to you, I'd rather focus on these beautiful assets right here." She giggled again and playfully swatted my hand away. "Don't touch until I give you the green light," she teased. When Monday rolled around, one of the senior partners called me into his office. Richie Sanders was a distinguished older man, with hair the color of steel and a deep tan that spoke of many afternoons under the sun. "Mike, come on in and take a seat," he said, offering me a firm handshake and a warm smile. "Burton mentioned he made you an offer." He was beaming with pride. "Congratulations. You've put in the work, and you've earned it." Well, I haven't officially accepted anything yet. I appreciate the congratulations, but it might be a bit early for that, I said, feeling it necessary to clarify. He said you were planning to talk it over with your wife, he said. How did that conversation go? She's still mulling it over, I replied. Her first question was about which direction the apartment faces. His face lit up as he rubbed his hands together in excitement. Oh, it's going to have a stunning view of the river, he assured me. I'm sure she'll fall in love with it. Did she have anything else to say? He then patted his crotch suggestively. Well, I've been told I'm pretty well equipped myself, he smirked. Damn, Mike, this is turning out even better than I expected. Your wife is absolutely stunning. I'm confident we can work something out that'll leave everyone satisfied. I nodded. Of course. Making sure everyone's happy has always been my main concern, I replied. That's the spirit, he said with approval. You know your promotion and future with Abbott and Myers rely on keeping us content. You've got your priorities straight, Mike. So, tell me, is your wife as incredible as she seems? Even more so, I said. She's always been a source of joy for me. I bet she has, he grinned broadly. What does she enjoy? Everything, I replied confidently. She'll be more than satisfied. Oh, she's going to love it, he assured me. She's coming with you to the Christmas party, right? It's important to the folks who'll be deciding on your partnership. I'm sure she'll be excited to attend, I said. Julie loves a good party. He let me return to my office, and soon after, Tim Burton took me out to lunch. He was eager to get some papers signed, including the lease for the penthouse, but I told him I wanted Julie to review the documents and check out the place first. She's particular when it comes to choosing an apartment, I explained. She wouldn't be thrilled if I signed a lease without her input. He understood and handed me the key. I decided to take the rest of the day off and played a round of golf. Julie called me on my cell while I was on the 10th hole, and we made plans to meet for dinner. When I handed the keys to the parking attendant, he looked at me with surprise. I guessed he wasn't used to seeing cars like mine. I silently hoped he wouldn't put a scratch on it. Julie was waiting for me at the bar. 2 guys were sitting next to her, and a couple more were hovering around like vultures. She jumped up as soon as she spotted me and led the way to our table, leaving her admirers disappointed. When the waiter brought our food, we started chatting about our day. Julie mentioned that she was nearly finished with her case. I hope you can wrap it up before Christmas, I said. We've been invited to the office Christmas party, and all the higher-ups are really hoping we'll make an appearance. Her face lit up like a kid on Christmas morning. You know how much I love parties, honey, she said with excitement. I hope you told them we're going. I figured I'd check with you first, I replied. I wasn't sure if you'd be up for it. It sounds like the perfect plan, she said with enthusiasm. I mentioned that I had the key to the apartment and suggested we go check it out, but she barely let me finish my meal. I had been looking forward to a slice of cheesecake and a cup of coffee. But her impatient drumming of her fingernails on the table, combined with the intense look she gave me, made it impossible to savor my dessert. To top it off, I ended up scalding my tongue on the hot coffee because of the rush. We pulled up to the building in Dover, and the doorman greeted us as we stepped inside. I told him we had the key and wanted to take a look around the apartment to see if it suited us. He was a bit snooty, pointing out that all the apartments in the building were top-notch. Susan, ever the observer, noticed a scuff on one of his shoes. Might want to shine those up, she quipped. Antique shoes like that must be hard to replace. His face flushed with embarrassment, and he quickly scurried off, probably to tend to his shoes. You're a little mean, you know that, babe. I teased her once the doorman was out of sight. She laughed and hugged my arm as we stepped into the elevator. The key took us straight to the penthouse level. The ride seemed to pass in an instant, though it actually took a bit longer. Susan pounced on me, and time has a way of slipping by when you're kissing a woman like that. By the time the elevator stopped, she was already lowering her skirt. We strolled down the hallway and into the apartment. The spacious rooms and floor-to-ceiling glass walls that offered a breathtaking view of the river were just as promised. Susan wandered around, taking it all in, while I explored in the opposite direction. We eventually met up in the kitchen. She tapped her heel on the floor. Laminate, she said with a hint of disdain. Can you believe it? It looks terrible. I heard you can drop a bowling ball on it and it wouldn't even get scratched, I said, trying to find something positive. She shot me a puzzled look. Why on earth would we throw a bowling ball in the kitchen? Then the corners of her mouth turned up in a mischievous grin, and I knew what was coming next. Do you want to test out the bed? She asked with a playful glint in her eye. Actually, I'm not all that sleepy, I said. I just had a cup of coffee, and my tongue's still burning a little. Oh, you poor thing. I've got just the thing for that, she said, pulling me into the bedroom where she promptly took care of my sore tongue. The bed squeaks, she noted, as we rode the elevator back down. The snooty doorman was back at his post, but this time we didn't exchange any words. Susan chatted nonstop all the way home, and after a nightcap of coffee, we called it a night. The next morning she was up early and had coffee ready. I took my time enjoying a cup, reflecting on the day before, and then asked her what she thought about the apartment. Go ahead and sign the lease, she said. I'll make sure we can sublet it if we need to. I headed to work, and before lunchtime, Burton called me into his office. So, what did you and your wife think of the apartment? He asked. She seemed to like it, I replied. The view of the river was impressive. Maybe once they clear the river of fish, it'll be a nice spot for a stroll. He didn't seem to have much of a response to that. Well, just make sure she dresses to impress for the Christmas party, he said. It'll be her first time at one of these, and I know all the senior partners are eager to meet her. You know, Mike, a lot of the partners have some really stunning wives, too. Want to see some pictures? It's one of the perks of being a partner, you know. He winked at me. Ever since I stumbled across my dad's stash of Playboys in the garage when I was a kid, I'd always had a fondness for looking at pictures of attractive women. Sure, I'd love to take a look, I said. I'll send the file to your email, he said. Just be discreet. Don't open them when anyone else is around. We're pretty careful about that. That's probably wise, I agreed. Any chance there are already pictures of Julie in there? Not yet, he said with a grin. But we could arrange something at the Christmas party if you're interested. Yeah, I think I'd be up for that, I told him. You're making the right move for your career, he assured me. With the economy the way it is, this isn't the best time to be job hunting. Yeah, I'm well aware, I said. A lot of people are struggling to find work. I'm grateful to be employed. That's what I like to hear, he said. It's great to have bright, level-headed folks like you around. I walked back to my desk, my mind swirling with what he'd said. With no clients on my schedule that day, I decided to pull up the images from the file Burton had sent over. They were quite explicit. I had no idea the men at the firm had such beautiful wives. Richard Davis's wife, for example, was absolutely breathtaking. She had that striking red hair I'd always had a soft spot for. And Mitchell Stevens's wife, wow, she was something else. Her skin was like brown sugar, and those little nipples looked just like Hershey's Kisses. Her figure was just incredible. I wondered if Julie would mind if I took a little time to get to know these lovely ladies a bit better. I tagged 2 of the photos and forwarded the file to her with a note. Hey babe, I was invited to check out the merchandise. While you're having fun at the Christmas party, would you mind if I took one of these beauties for a spin? Just springing this on her out of the blue would have been risky. Julie could get really pissed off if I blindsided her with a suggestion like that. I waited for a reply for about 30 minutes, but didn't hear anything. Hopefully, that was a good sign. Then her message came through. Why are you sending me pictures of women? Do you think I'm into girls? I guess I'll have to show you I'm not when I get home. I glanced around the office, making sure no one was heading my way. Satisfied that I was alone, I closed my door and pulled out my phone. Unzipping my pants, I took out my little guy. He was already halfway there, just from thinking about that stunning redhead and the gorgeous Mrs. Stevens, so a couple of quick strokes brought him to full attention. I snapped a few pictures and sent them to Julie. It didn't take long, about 2 minutes, before she replied, Wow, it's beautiful. How big do you think he is? Hard to say. Got a banana or something for scale? I joked. I grinned to myself. She didn't seem to recognize the little guy. I'd say he's about 10 inches, I replied. Sorry, no bananas here. Just a stapler. But I doubt anyone would appreciate me getting too close to their tools with it. Damn, she wrote back. I'll have to measure it when I get home. Try to find a ruler. Man, she sure doesn't mess around. I wondered where she got that level of confidence from. I glanced back at the pictures. Maybe she recognized the white boxers with the black Playboy bunnies. She had bought them for me last year on a trip to Arizona. I'd nearly forgotten about them. I wondered if Richie Sanders would object if I compared her assets to the stapler. I picked it up and started heading toward his office, but halfway there, I changed my mind. Maybe Julie would just take my word for it. If not, she might just bring it up with Richie herself at the party, and if he turned out to be a bust, she could always find someone else. After all, in a group of 7, there's always at least one who stands out. When I got home, the house was empty, so I started scurrying around, hiding every ruler I could find. I wasn't taking any chances. Just after 5, Julie burst through the door, tossed her briefcase onto the couch, and grabbed hold of my arm. I spent a lot of time outside today, she said. I'm drenched in sweat. Let's go take a shower. One thing led to another in the shower, and by the end of it, I figured I was in the clear. By tomorrow, she'd probably forget all about the whole ruler business. Saturday morning rolled around, and after another shower, Julie mentioned she needed to stop by work for an hour. I asked what was so urgent, and she said she had to tidy things up and meet with a few people. While she was gone, I sat down at the computer and started browsing through my collection of pictures of attractive women. That redhead was something else. It struck me that it wouldn't hurt to remind Julie that I was hoping for a repeat of last night. After all, she hadn't said no, so I was feeling optimistic. Turns out, my optimism was misplaced. Look at that hottie, she remarked when she got back, as we were going through the pictures together. Well, if you can recognize the boxers from Playboy, then so can I stammered, suddenly realizing I had inadvertently brought up the measurement topic again. But she didn't seem to catch on. Wow, that was a close call, I thought to myself. Then she switched gears. So, when do you think we can get the paperwork for the new apartment and the checks? She asked. It dawned on me that she was trying to steer me away from the redhead. Julie has a jealous streak a mile wide, and I could see right through her little plan. I wonder how you'll look after the Christmas party, I mused. Probably just like her, she said with a smirk. Honestly, Mike, I'm only asking you to handle one thing. Can't you at least be a little helpful? I mentioned it to Zach Sanders, I said. She looked at me with admiration. See, I knew you were on top of things, Mike. That's great work. You think of everything. I probably would have made a move on him first. Thanks, babe. I shrugged. Everyone does their best. Got any plans for tomorrow? Yeah, you too, she said. We're going to church, and then Mom and Dad are taking us out to eat. That sounded good to me. Then I had a thought. Will Brittany be there? Brittany is her twin sister, and as much as I loved her, I couldn't stand her. She was always up to something, usually some prank aimed at her unsuspecting brother-in-law. Of course, Julie said. There's no way she'd miss it. I groaned, and Julie just laughed. Don't worry, kid. I won't let her eat you. Church was really nice. The pastor gave a sermon on love, and I was feeling the love that morning. After the service, I walked the family to the car. Leo, Julie's dad, gave the driver directions, and we were off. The restaurant was fantastic, and I had a great time. At one point, Julie and Brittany excused themselves to the restroom, leaving me to chat with their parents. Stacy, their mom, was like an older version of the girls, and I adored her like my own mother. When Julie came back on her own, she slid in close to me, her hand resting on my thigh. It was obvious she was feeling frisky. Her hand started to creep upward into dangerous territory, and I frowned. Then she burst out laughing, and I caught a glimpse of a gold filling. Leo, tell Brittany to back off, I said. She's at it again. Both parents scolded their mischievous daughter, and the real Julie walked over to the table, laughing. I pretended to be annoyed, and they pretended to try to calm me down. Monday brought a whirlwind of activity at work. We were getting ready for the holiday season, and Burton and I had a stack of paperwork to get through. I flipped through the lease agreement, the partnership documents, Everything was in order. I was shown to my new corner office with a great view of the city and got settled in. I mentioned to Burton that I was interested in meeting Mrs. Davis, and he assured me that he'd introduce us at the party. "Just say the word, and she's yours for the night," Burton assured me. "Not only is she stunning, but she's got a fantastic sense of humor, too," he added. We had Tuesday off, and then on Wednesday it was time for the Christmas party. We also had Thursday and Friday off, so it was a nice long break. On Tuesday, I spent a great day with Julie. She was busy getting everything ready for the big party, and I was already looking forward to meeting Mrs. Davis. I mentioned her to Julie a couple of times, and though I saw her tense up, she didn't say anything. I figured she didn't mind, right? As it turned out, the party was held right in the Dover building. Julie had mentioned that, but somehow I'd missed it. On Tuesday night, we decided to spend the evening in our new apartment to sort of break it in, but the bed turned out to be annoyingly creaky, which required immediate attention. Nobody likes a squeaky bed. I thought maybe some Armor All might do the trick, so I decided to invest in it. That relentless creaking was starting to get on my nerves. We got our party outfits ready and hung them in the closet. I had been anticipating this moment all day, and when Julie finally stepped out, I was blown away. Her red dress perfectly highlighted her beauty, and she looked absolutely stunning. I tried to get closer to her, but she playfully pushed me away, warning me not to wrinkle her dress. "Later, big boy," she teased. It was a bit of a letdown, but we'd cross that bridge when we got to it. Hopefully it wouldn't collapse under us. She gave me a once-over, and I felt pretty sharp in my tuxedo. She seemed to approve, letting her hand glide down my pants. "Keep your cool," she warned with a smile. I hoped Mrs. Davis would help me with that later. When we walked into the party, the sound of jazz filled the room. The tables were loaded with food and drinks, and several couples were already dancing. Julie always insists we arrive fashionably late, and I'm pretty sure every guy in the room had their eyes on her when we made our entrance, with more than a few of the women probably taking notice too. As soon as we arrived, Burton personally escorted us to the main table, where all the senior partners were seated, along with a few junior partners. I introduced Julie, and we took our seats. Zach Sanders quickly took Julie under his wing and guided her over to the food tables, while Burton introduced me to Mrs. Davis. She was even more attractive in person. Her name was Christina, but she suggested I just call her Christy. She cozied up to me like it was the most natural thing in the world. We wandered over to a table with appetizers and drinks. When we returned, Burton and Sanders were surrounding Julie, showering her with compliments. I noticed her eyelid flutter slightly when she caught my eye. It was almost like a subtle wink in my direction. With Christy snuggled up to me and a plate full of gourmet food, I felt as giddy as a kid in a toy store. As the drinks flowed, the conversations became more candid. I overheard a few comments from Burton and Sanders directed at Julie. "I can't wait to get you into bed and spend the whole night with you," one of them said. Julie just giggled in response. "You won't be able to say no," added the other. "We have clients who really know their way around the bedroom. You'll be screaming with pleasure all night long," chimed in a third. "Oh, I'm sure I'll be satisfied," Julie murmured, her tone a bit vague. "I'm going to show you something you didn't even know you had," one of them promised. I was a bit puzzled by all of this. Maybe the pictures I was about to receive would help me make sense of what was going on. Hopefully the bed's creak had been fixed by now, and the sound quality wouldn't disappoint. Burton looked at me. "We're taking this hot lady to your place," he announced. "You won't recognize her by the time we're through." The senior partners led the clearly excited Julie out of the room. They headed for the elevator while Brittany and my father-in-law made their way home. I patted Christy on the shoulder. "The show's about to start," I said. She laughed. Her giggle was really cute. "Let's get this party started," she replied. We took the elevator to the top floor. A few other people joined us, all looking sharp in their uniforms. I thought they might be airline pilots, but I'd never seen pilots carrying weapons before. When I opened the door to the apartment, I was greeted by 7 very surprised faces, and 1 very angry one. "Mike," Burton said, his voice full of shock, "what are you doing here?" The uniformed men moved toward me, cuffs in hand, and began reading me my rights. My right to an attorney, my right to remain silent, the whole spiel. I glanced over at Julie. She was standing there in nothing but a red lace garter and stockings. Turns out that stunning dress she had on was just body paint. She quickly slipped into a robe, not saying a word. "What the hell is going on here?" Sanders demanded, his voice rising. "Who are you people? We're the owners of this apartment. Why are you arresting us? What the expletive is this about?" "On multiple charges," Brittany chimed in. "Tax fraud, sexual harassment, illegal recording of private activities, that sort of thing. Who knows, we might even dig up something else." I shot a look at Burton. "I warned you, Burton," I said, shaking my head. "I told you collecting those mattress tags would get you into trouble one day." I thought Sanders was about to lose it completely. His eyes darted from Julie to Brittany, pure confusion etched on his face. "Who the hell are you people?" he finally snarled. "I'm Deputy Federal Prosecutor Brittany Olson," she stated firmly, gesturing toward her father. "This is Federal Prosecutor Leonard Olson." She then pointed to Julie and me. "This is Assistant Federal Prosecutor Julie, and this is Special Investigator Mike, her husband. With all the evidence we've gathered from the wires Mike's been wearing, you don't stand a chance. We've been building this case for 18 months, and you're under arrest." As they were let out of the apartment, their protests growing fainter, the four of us, me, Julie, Brittany, and Christy, were left standing there. "You're still going to testify against them, right, Christy?" Julie asked. "Absolutely," Christy replied with a confident smile. I cleared my throat. "So, I guess Christy won't be joining us at the party?" I asked, half joking. "And Brittany can stay if she wants?" Both women seemed entirely on board with the suggestion. I could see a mischievous spark in their eyes. "Who are you calling a goober?" Brittany shot back. "Besides, it's my apartment now. You just sublet it to me yesterday. I'm the one kicking you out. Go sleep in that fancy Millennium Tower you're so proud of, Christy." "Mike, you and Julie can stay if you want," she added. I was tempted, but I knew I'd rather be with Julie. "Forget them," Julie said, pulling me close. "My man's going to have a good time tonight. All this excitement has got me all worked up. Are you going to turn me into a expletive tonight?" She let her robe fall open as the elevator doors began to close. "You want a private expletive?" I teased, giving her a playful glare. "Maybe later, babe," she replied, a little weary now. "But right now, I just want to take my beautiful wife home and show her how much I love her. I feel so dirty after being around these guys for 18 months. Do you get it, baby? Can we just enjoy being together tonight?" She nodded in agreement, and we ended up having a wonderful evening together.